GG 3000 is the house. I'm going to let you in a second, Gregory. I just want to introduce you first to all the people, the party people in the place to be. It's 3 o'clock, so we're going to get this cracking. Listen, I am so... Okay, let me turn this. Okay, that looks a little better. So, anyway, let me introduce our guest for this week. So, thank you for joining me. This is the regular series that I do, Chopping It Up with MoAD from my backyard here in Oakland, California. And always excited to talk to thought leaders, chefs, farmers, activists, people who are changing our world for the better. And I'm very excited to have our guest, Gregory Gourdet, on today. Just one of my favorite chefs, creatives, brilliant thinkers, and someone who I think motivates many of us to just be better people, not just professionals, but better human beings, more thoughtful, taking care of ourselves, and shining our light so we can inspire others to do the same. So thank you, Gregory, for doing that for me personally, which I'll tell you a little bit about when we talk, but for many of us, because I know you inspire a lot. So I'm going to introduce Gregory. He is an American chef of Haitian descent who owns the pop-up restaurant Kann. He was previously executive chef and culinary director at Departure at the Nines in Portland, Oregon. He competed on the 12th and 17th seasons of the American reality television show Top Chef, and his new book, Everyone's Table, Global Recipes for Modern Health, features gluten-free and paleo joints. So let's invite Gregory in. There he is.
What's up, brother? How are you?
What's up, Gregory? I see you tapping in from the rainforest over in Portland. Do you live in Portland proper?
Portland is a rainforest. Oregon is technically a rainforest. So
no doubt.
The Caribbean oasis, like in the rainforest. So
yeah, love that. How you feeling today?
I'm good. It's been a whirlwind of a week. The book came out on Tuesday. 3 years of work to get it out there, and it feels good to have it out there. It feels good to have people supporting it. People have been making recipes. People are enjoying the story behind it. So I feel like it's going pretty good so far. So it feels good to have it out in the world after working on it for so long.
Nice. I know we're in a kind of transitional phase in the world where people are starting to get out and do things. Do you have any plans for doing physical events, or are you going to be sticking with virtual for the book tour?
Yeah. So, I'm kind of planning a few things. We just wrapped the pop-up, which was, quite a bit of time. I have a couple events in Denver, but nothing too scheduled. I'm going to get out and enjoy myself for a little bit after working for quite some time, but there's definitely going to be a few things on the horizon for sure. And I'm looking forward to presenting some new events throughout the country throughout the rest of the year.
Cool. Well, listen, the museum is currently shut down. Unfortunately, we had a flood. The St. Regis next door flooded, and we're connected. So we're like out of commission until the fall. But best believe when we can make it happen, we would love to have you for a physical in-person event and see if we can have somebody making your recipes at a, in the community, down and dirty, nighttime, getting buck wild event. We can do it all. So, I'm glad we get to finally chop it up face to face. We've been kind of connecting over the past year because of your contribution to Black food, my forthcoming book, and have to say one of your recipe is one of my favorites in there.
Oh, thank you.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I hope you're happy with the way we presented it and the photo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just honored to be a part of that project.
Thank you, man. I'm here as the chef in residence at MoAD, but I'm here as a fan, man. I've been a fan for a minute, and in 2014 when Afro Vegan was released, I did a stop in Portland, and you weren't at the restaurant that night, but I came
Yeah.
through. I gave somebody a copy of my book. I don't even know if
Yeah.
it
Of
got to
course,
you.
I got
Okay,
the
okay.
book. Of course, I got the book. I got it all.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And dude, those barbecue tofu bao. I don't know if you still
Yeah.
like whipping
Yeah.
those up, but damn, man, I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
whew. Can you talk? Can you tell the people a little bit about that? That was just slamming beyond belief.
Yeah. Well, I actually was vegetarian for all of college, so for 4 years. And this was before I wanted to be a chef. I was just kind of feeding myself in college, living on my own for the first time, living in Montana, of all places, but, halfway across the country, very far from home. So I just started feeding myself, and I was vegetarian. So I've always kind of had a pretty strong relationship with vegetables and plant-based eating, for quite some time. But tempeh is one of those amazing ingredients that you can make from different types of legumes and grains, and it's fermented, so it's like really good for you with probiotics. And we just slapped on a little Korean style barbecue sauce and put it into some steam buns and probably a little a little coleslaw, kimchi coleslaw. And I think that's a dish that we had.
Yeah. Wait, so you guys made the tempeh in house?
No, we did not. No,
Oh, okay.
we definitely did not. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
damn, y'all on some next level shit. Well, let me ask you this because, okay, I guess we need to get clear about the timeline because
Yeah.
you were a vegetarian in college, but when did you enter professional cooking world?
Sure. It was in college. I mean, honestly, it was after college because my first job was in college. I was, literally on my third major. I was at my second college. I was at NYU for freshman year for pre-med. It's like the classic story of immigrant, parents. They come to the States, they work really hard, they want the best. You got to become a doctor or a lawyer. So I just always thought I wanted to be a doctor until, like a year of pre-med at NYU. And I realized, that really wasn't my passion. So I went out to Montana. I thought I wanted to do wildlife biology. And after about, a year and a half of that, that's when I had started cooking to feed myself. And the chef, my first job was washing dishes. And the chef was like, you should go to culinary school. You have a knack for this. And, at the same time, I was working at a vegetarian deli. So, I just learned how to make pasta salad and sandwiches. And really, it was like the first time I was cooking in a professional setting. But I would read cookbooks at home. I'd read like the MoAD cookbook. I would read like the Joy of Cooking. And I would just practice and just make food for friends and family whenever they visited. And I just started cooking more. And then I dipped out and went off to the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
Few years later. So I always call myself a late bloomer. I don't have a lot of stories, growing up cooking with my relatives, even though they fed me really, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely have a lot of memories growing up and eating a lot of food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those definitely inspire me today every single day for sure.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this. Where do you feel like that knack or that propensity for cooking that chef's on you? Like, where is that from?
Sure. I mean, I think it really stems with, my relationship with my mother, and growing up in a household where, I had lots of figures, mostly maternal figures, who cooked for us all the time. I think I definitely get my work ethic from my parents because they worked multiple jobs to, make sure that my sister and I always had food and clothes, and we could go to Catholic school and private school, and, they wanted the best for us. But at the same time, my mother always had dinner on the table. She always made us breakfast. We would make our own lunch sometimes, but, she always cooked. And Sunday was a big, huge feast. And, if our aunts were watching us, if they're staying with us, they always made a big pot of rice and beans, Haitian style chicken. On Sundays, we would go see my grandmother in New Jersey. She always cooked for us. So I have all these figures in my life who just always cooked, So I think that's really my relationship with food. Like, I remember when I was younger, we'd go to like all these big Haitian parties and events and communions and graduations, and my mother would yell at me because I would just always be by the food, and she'd be like embarrassed and thought it was kind of rude, but I was like, yo, let's eat.
I love that.
I mean, I think the funny thing is, like, even though like I didn't like pre-med and chemistry and biology and wildlife biology, all those things are so a part of, the culinary arts, from the chemistry and biology of cooking and baking and, the chemical process of just cooking in general.
Yeah.
And then, all the environmental elements of, how we grow and our relationship to the planet, that's all part of wildlife biology. So I really do believe like all these experiences kind of helped me become the chef I am today.
That's beautiful. I think back to that time where I left this doctoral program at NYU to go to culinary school, and my parents, they weren't feeling that shit. They were like really, you know, concerned that this path that they had in their mind for me, and like you talked about, this kind of way in which our parents and the people that love us for, obviously good reasons, but deviating from that was a little frustrating for them, and they eventually came around. But I'm wondering, how did your family feel about you kind of like going in this different direction and embracing the
Yeah.
culinary art?
Yeah, I'm very grateful, extremely grateful that my parents were ever supportive, and they're so supportive of me to this day. And, I think they realized that I was just growing up very different from them, like for them to grow up in Haiti in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and my father literally grew up like in a small town called La Zille. He had no running water. He had no electricity, like the one phone where he grew up was like in the church, so, I grew up in New York City, like Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, like the 80s, 90s, and early aughts. So I think they really understood that, we just grew up really, really different. I was always extremely expressive when I was younger, like I come back with like my initials, like cut out in my fade and like, just like, and like my parents would be like, no, tuck your shirt in, so I was always just very expressive and like a little bit different. I had locks, I had piercings, and they were just like, what? You're just very different. I'm like, I'm just growing up in New York. Like, it's just what it is. So
Yeah.
they trusted that, what they were kind of help inspire me, the person they were inspiring me to be, I think they trusted in that a lot. So, when I was like, hey, I want to do this, they were just always supportive. And like, when I was like, hey, I want to go to culinary school, they're like, no, like if you get your college degree, then if you finish college, like then we'll support you to go to culinary school. So I actually ended up getting a degree in French because I had a bunch of French credits already, and I was just trying to get out of there. But yeah, college was 5 years and then another 2 years for culinary school. So it was a long road. Yeah.
Growing up in New York, what kind of subcultures were you a part of? Like, I feel like you just have such eclectic tastes, and you just such a just a cool ass cat. Like, what was your vibe when you were like in high school?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's extremely varied. Like I have a very like diverse background for sure. I went to, I grew up in an all Black American and Haitian neighborhood in Queens. So, grade school was like salt and pepper, Big Daddy Kane, back of the bus, But for high school, I actually went to a very small, predominantly white boarding school in Delaware. And if you ever seen Dead Poet Society, that's my high school. So, my parents were like, hey, you can either go to private school in the city or, there are these opportunities, scholarships and, it was like, the 80s affirmative action. So we can get you into these private schools.
Did you do prep for prep or anything like that?
I went prep for prep. I was contingent number 2.
Nice.
Indeed. Great program. So, I honestly think though, like going to that small boarding school in Delaware, it was really the first time I met like different people from like different parts of the country. And granted that a lot of them were white, but like at the same time, it really helped expand my kind of concept of like what life in America can be. And I think it really is one of the driving factors what inspired me to like not be scared to move to places like Montana, move to places like Portland, because, I love the outdoors. And, I've always either lived somewhere like, Portland or Montana or my high school, which is like on a pond, or like somewhere like New York City, So I really do believe, if I hadn't had that experience to go to boarding school, I would probably just live in New York City my whole life.
Yeah. So I know self-care is a major emphasis for you. Last year was wild. Last year was wild for all of us, right?
Indeed.
And, if you're Black, we know that there are just multiple kind of emotions. And, I think about the way in which so many of us after the uprisings and, the movement, the Black Lives Matter, and just like the protests against police violence were growing. And a lot of folks, at least in food media and other places, but specifically in food media, there was a lot of, interest. We want you to do this event. We want you to appear here and there. And I just think about like your year from starting your pop-up, Top Chef duties, writing a book. Like, how are you? I'm just wondering, just because look, and I'm just saying this coming from a place where I'm exhausted, I'm mentally taxed, I need a sabbatical. I'm wondering, given all that you've been holding, how are you doing? How's your mental health? Just like what's happening for you?
I think for me, I am in recovery. And I think a huge part of my story, something I actually start the book with is, what led me to recovery. I battled drugs and alcohol for 7 years, and I was able to, start recovery 12 years ago. So for me, knowing that, like I have a really, really dark time in my past, and I was very irresponsible. I let a lot of people down. I missed events. I just was not very honest with myself or with my loved ones. So to be able to get past that, I truly do consider all of that, those dark times, a gift, because it really helps put things into perspective. Mm-hmm. And, I know you're the same way. You are constantly working, but you work on things that, you actually have a finished product. So there is a sense of, I'm working to accomplish a goal, something for myself, something for the culture. You do an amazing job at that as well. But for me, I know that I have been through the worst of my life, and I know that whatever I get through, I will be okay, because I have the strength and courage that, walking through that has given me. So that really helped me a lot in 2020, because 2020 was actually very, very tough. I felt very lucky because I wasn't actually working in a restaurant. I had, left my post, and I was kind of planning to travel and research, go to Haiti and go to Thailand and do all these things and finish my book. But I just ended up staying at home and finishing my book. One thing for me that was a huge part was actually, a reckoning in the restaurant industry as well, because as we saw, people of color in our community, asking for, basic rights and equity, throughout, our neighborhoods, restaurant industry workers felt the same thing. So, it was a tough time because I let a lot of people, I'm a very public figure. So, I got caught in a lot of accusations. And for me, it just became abundantly clear that, I would have to keep focusing on doing the best that I can to try to elevate people, to take all the resources that I have, and share those with other people, because I was like, hey, I'm going to be able to get through this, and whatever I do, I'm going to be okay. But it's now I need to pay even extra attention on making sure all the people around me I can lift up as well. So it's been good. We opened up a 5-month pop-up. We were able to keep a staff of 90% BIPOC. We were able to keep a staff of about 90% Women X as well. We were able to do some things different in terms of equity, in terms of how the pay structure and how the restaurant is run. So, I took a very, very tough lesson and tried to turn it into something positive.
Now, is the goal to eventually have a brick and mortar that would replicate what you're doing there?
Absolutely. For me, we're hoping to open the restaurant Kann, which is a wood-fired, Haitian-inspired restaurant, but it's also inspired by global BIPOC flavors. I'm so inspired by like the African diaspora, but also Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, of course. So I want, all these foods to be able to be represented in the cuisine, all these stories to be told. But as far as a model, 100%. I think women's leadership and Women X leadership is extremely important in the restaurant industry. That's something I'm working on tremendously. I have people in mind to be the leaders of my restaurant. I've been working with them for, multiple years now, and I just want us to keep working together so they can run the restaurants. I just want to think differently of how we pay, how our guests understand that it costs a lot more to pay a living wage to our employees. And I want to be able to do that. And to be able to, be like, hey, this is what it costs to run a restaurant. I need to pay my people. And the prices need to reflect that, because there's so many conversations about like how we make more restaurants more equitable. And it really starts with just putting people in place, having a diverse pool, and paying people fairly, and creating a safe work environment and moving forward from that.
Yeah, thank you so much for your leadership on that. I know there have been a lot of chefs who've been talking the talk, but it's really good to see Black male chefs like you stepping up in that way. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think one thing I learned last year is like, I've always, I've been very fortunate, and like sometimes you feel like if you do work hard, you can just have things. And like I've seen some people around me just do that. My parents and like colleagues and, you know, like some of the leading Black chefs in this country, you know, they've been through it all and they just worked hard and they've achieved things. But one thing 2020 made abundantly clear is that you can do the best you can, work as hard as you can, and oftentimes you can end up getting killed. You can end up getting, you know, like attacked. Like you can end up getting like not the same opportunities as anybody else. So it's important that we keep moving forward.
Yes, sir. So you talked about spending a lot of time at home last year. Can you give us a quick little pan tour? When I see I'm going to tell you the two ways that you've inspired me. One, your plant daddiness has definitely inspired me to step up my plant daddiness.
Yeah, there's just a lot of plants.
Gee, you have like dozens, if not. How many? Can you estimate how many plants you have up in the crib?
I think I have about 175 houseplants.
That's legit. That's legit. I love that.
I mean, like I said, it rains here all the time. So if it's not cozy and comfortable in here, I also have some Haitian art, so it feels good, you know.
Caribbean vibes for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody said Chef Gregory is the ultimate plant daddy. Another way in which you've inspired me, and I'm sure a lot of people do, there have been times where, you know, life happens. I'm not on my game. Thankfully, I've been like hardcore on my game. Like my physical activity has been the most consistent thing over the past year. I'm like, I got to get that in just for my mental health, for my sanity, getting out the house. But yeah, man, seeing your posts, your videos, your images of you just being out and being physically active and being in the world are super inspiring. And I love if you talk about that aspect of your practice of just like, you know, running and extreme sports. Just can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. You know, again, just like stems from like, you know, me just reaching a point where, you know, I wanted to just change my life. And like when I was just like starting recovery 12 years ago, I had like gone in and out of like working out and trying to get healthy, and I would just relapse. But when I finally got sober, I just decided I wanted to change so many different parts of me. And you know, when you're used to like getting off of work at like 11 or 12 and, you know, going to the bar until the bar closes and going out after that, you know, like that's a pretty big habit that you need to change. So I actually started running after work. So I would get off of work and I was training for my first half marathon. And as soon as I did my first half marathon, I hired a coach and I started training for my first marathon. So I would just run around, and instead of going to the bar, I would just start training and running and you know, try to get rid of that energy that I would spend drinking for so many years. So, you know, through that, I just kind of fell into, you know, meeting some other runners, and, you know, people inspired me to run further. So, you know, I've actually run like quite a few marathons. I've done a couple of 50-mile races, especially living in Portland, Oregon, which is, you know, Nike's here. It's like one of the best running states in the country. In the woods, there's literally like one of the biggest city parks in the country is just 3 miles away. So it's about, you know, acres and acres and acres of just running in the forest. So, but yeah, you know, I have an addictive personality and I understand that about myself. So it's really important that I find things to challenge that into. Lately, it's really just been work, which is probably not the most balanced and healthy. But yeah, running has always been a big part of me. Yoga has been a big part of my recovery and my mental health. And just spending time alone outside, you know, the restaurant can get busy, you know, you have a big team. So running has changed quite a bit. For me now, it's all about just being in the woods for as long as possible. Oftentimes I'm just hiking at this point, but just trying to be in the woods for like 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, just quietly walking, hiking, climbing mountains. You know, it's a good thing.
Love that. I appreciate the way in which you're very transparent about your struggles, about your addictions, and also the attempts you've made with others to kind of disrupt this culture around like addiction and drinking that pretty much permeates a lot of the restaurant world. Can you tell people about some of those efforts that you've been involved in?
Sure. You know, so I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, which is a very decades old program, which is a fantastic recovery program. It's a lifestyle 100%. You know, it gives you so many tools to deal with like the problems of life. But, you know, anonymous is, then in the title, so there's also this thing of, you can't promote it, you should be respectful and quiet. And, for me, like it's not that easy. I started doing just things on television. The first time I was on Top Chef, they asked about it so many times. By the time you do interviews, so I would have to talk about it all the time. And, like 8 years ago, it was very hard to talk about my recovery as openly because, I still had some shame, I was still making amends, having such a dark time be so close to, the current time frame, like 3-4 years into recovery, it's still a little bit fresh in your mind, the last few years of it. But once I saw that, people from across the country were reaching out to me saying, thank you for being so open about your recovery. Thank you for being an example that, you can recover. Things can get better. You can work hard and accomplish these things. I knew that it was really important to me that, I be as vocal as possible about these things. And, I do believe, about 5-6 years ago, a shift started in the restaurant industry where we started talking about mental health. And we started talking about addiction in our industry because, the hospitality industry is the #1 industry, for recovery issues and addiction issues. So, for me, talking about it as much as I do helps me, destigmatize it. It helps me make peace with my past. And it just keeps inspiring me to remember that, I remember what it was like and I don't want to go back that, I want to keep moving forward and I want to inspire people to, continue to get sober. In this pandemic, a lot of people have gotten sober. But in the meetings that we attend, a lot of people have passed away, we have a group that's called Ben's Friends, and it's specifically a recovery group for people in the hospitality industry. It's very special because, if you're a bartender, or if you're a winemaker, it's very hard to speak openly sometimes, say in an Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, because people might judge you or, they might question, how can you be a bartender and be sober? But in reality, if this is what you love, this is what you're doing, you're going to find a way to make it work. Yeah. So that group has been extremely successful, but, literally in the 3 years, we have lost members to this disease. So it's important that we're as vocal as possible. So we know, people know that there's a resource out there.
Yeah. I want to get to the book, but I want to briefly touch on Top Chef. And if you want to talk about this season a little bit, we can, but I want to go back to the All-Star season, man. Let me tell you something. My daughters, my 6 and 9-year-old, they love you. Like, when you were having those back issues for saying, Greg, they were crying. They were over here crying for you, man.
I was crying myself.
No, it was just so cute seeing how much they took to you. But yeah, can we talk? I haven't gotten a chance to see it. We said we wanted to sit down and actually start seeing the new season tonight. Can you just talk about, transitioning from being talent to actually being a judge?
I will definitely say it's definitely a lot easier, but I've been on Top Chef 2 seasons, now judging this season. So, it definitely changed my life. It allowed me to reach a broader audience, and that's really great. I'm really grateful for that. But, in actuality, personally, I've always left Top Chef, knowing that I need to learn more about food, and that's the one thing Top Chef me. And even this season as a judge, when you think about all the different types of cultures and all the different types of cuisines, and I'm very inspired by, culture and flavors and ingredients. When you think about all the different cultures and cuisines from all around the world, you can literally spend your lifetime learning about these things. And that's the most fascinating part for me. But yeah, I mean, being a judge versus being a cook, when you're a chef on Top Chef, you're literally like freaking out 12 hours a day because you're hot, you're sweaty, you have a lot of anxiety. Padmas can send your ass home at any second. You don't know what's around the corner. But it's really fun. I love kind of pushing my way through those challenging, crazy situations, and the gratification of winning a challenge or being in the top makes you feel really good to be able to cook through something crazy like that. But I will not complain about getting hair and makeup and hang out with Gail and Padma and having a and as a judge.
No doubt. And the brother Kwame Onawachi as well.
Kwame and I, it was nuts. we had so much fun.
I already know. Yeah. Well, on that note, can you just tell us, because obviously this was a COVID shoot, and you all
Yeah.
had to have your pod that you maintained throughout the season. How was that piece?
Yeah, so we were all curious how it would go down because I think Top Chef, some production companies had started back up, but we literally got into a bubble with 180 people. We took over a hotel in downtown Portland, literally, a couple blocks away from all the protests, right into, the forest fires that, were happening at the beginning of our filming. So we were tested twice before we got there. We were all quarantined in a hotel room for 7 days straight. We could not leave our rooms for anything, and got tested every 2 days. And we made it through 6 weeks of filming throughout the state with 180 people. They're pods in the bubble, and we all got to hang out and take our masks off and feel safe. And we made it through filming, and we had 0 cases of COVID within us, and we got to shoot an entire season. So hats off to Team Top Bravo and Magical Elves for, making us feel safe and getting that done.
No doubt. Bravo, bravo. All right, everyone's table. Have you long had a vision of writing your own cookbook? I imagine do most chefs yeah, I'm gonna write a book every day. When when did this kind of become a reality? This is happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I keep thinking about if there was a specific moment where I jumped out of bed and was I'm gonna write a cookbook, but I really cannot think of that specific moment. I remember going to a manager meeting at work and being hey everyone, I'm gonna write a cookbook. But I don't remember jumping out of bed and being I'm gonna write a cookbook. So I think it was something that was slowly brewing, and kind of watching colleagues publish their cookbooks and kind of thinking what is the next chapter I can take for me. But I do specifically remember, I started with writing down, the favorite dishes I've ever made in my whole life. And that's how I started. And I specifically remember I was going to Haiti for the first time in 20 years. I had made a commitment to, diving into my culture a lot more and reconnecting and learning. I was going to cook a Haitian meal at the Beard House with my mom later that year. So I just had to literally dive in and do my research and be real with it. So I actually started writing the book on the plane to Haiti. I started writing my biography, which was beautifully written into the story, which it became by my help with the help of my writer J.J. Good. But I started writing the book on the plane to Haiti and at my aunt's house in Haiti, and I remember that really, really clearly. But I think for me, the most important part of the book was I really wanted to create something that if you had never come to my restaurants, or if you had never watched Top Chef, or if you had no idea who I was, you could pick up the book and it would be something that was helpful to you. It would inspire you to cook these different things, and you would learn something from it. And I hope that's what we achieved with the book.
Definitely. One thing I love about the book is that I feel like there's a place for everybody to enter, no matter what your eating style. My daughter has become a hardcore vegan over the past year, and she was just going through, gonna make this, gonna make that, gonna make that. But yeah, I love the fact that there's such a diversity of dishes in there. Was there ever a point? I mean, did you? I guess I'm wondering, what was your approach to figuring out? Was it just based on dishes? You weren't thinking, paleo, any type of eating model? Was it more driven by these are the type of dishes I want to make? Period.
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination. I think the book there's just a lot going on in the book. I don't think it's confusing by any means. I think it's organized and laid out fairly well.
Yeah.
But I think it just kind of, it's your first thing. So it's a very personal thing. My first restaurant's going to be a very personal thing. So the book, it was a very personal thing, even though I wanted to it to be far reaching, and it had not as much to do with me as making you feel better. But at the same time, I have Haitian heritage and all these amazing memories of eating Haitian food. I've been to Southeast for most of my life, and I understand. We all know that a lot of these dishes in the Caribbean are African diaspora, and what's the root of following these ingredients across the world, and how do they make these modern dishes that we know and love? So, that being said, I am dairy free. I am gluten free. I don't eat a lot of red meat. So, I wanted to be a book where it just focused on the top 100 superfoods. That's really the driving force behind it. And you can look at so many different types of cuisines and cultures. And, there's so many dishes that are already gluten free and dairy free and don't have soy. And then the health element is really about, teaching people that there are some ingredients that are just better than other ingredients. And, you know, one thing that I learned studying the paleo diet is that, you know, while there are, you know, Mother Nature makes amazing things and, you know, people make amazing products as well, but something like grapeseed oil, you know, is derived from a pretty harsh chemical process, right, where something like avocado oil is literally just avocado squeezed into a bottle. Yep. You know, so it's like about making, you know, like slowly introducing these ingredients into your diet, into your pantry, into your cupboard, and then making delicious food. You know, for me, you know, I don't love eating kale all the time. It can be a little tough. It can be a little chewy. But if you cook it with reduced coconut milk, you know, and a little ginger, a little garlic, you know, it's silky, it's delicious, you know. Like little tips and tricks like that to make all these delicious foods, you know, as delicious as possible, and introducing spices from around the world, you know, different chilies, fish sauce, you know, coconut milk, and just making really healthful, delicious food that has some culture and story behind them.
No doubt. There are a lot of people who are like, this book is fire. Somebody wrote, I'm making your banana chocolatey brownies right now.
Yes, yes.
Gee, if there was like, so just imagine you're speaking to the novice.
Yes.
What are some recipes you might say, this is a great place for you to start? This will be a good way for you to kind of ease into the book. Do you have some favorites?
Yeah, I think the first recipe is actually a great introduction. It's the cucumber salad, and it's kind of Chinese inspired, but you sub out coconut aminos for the soy sauce. So that's one way to kind of slowly introduce these alternative ingredients that are allergen friendly into your pantry. You have to make a chili oil for the recipe. So you're going to make this chili oil. You're going to keep the chili oil in your pantry. So you can already, you know, have this great, beautiful jar of chili oil that you can just keep in your pantry and spice up a lot of your dishes. And then literally it's just, you know, cilantro, sesame seeds, a little garlic, and some cucumbers and some salt. And it's crispy, it's crunchy, it's a little bit spicy, it's savory, and you can get it on the table in minutes. So that's definitely a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. You know, this is such a I mean, it's, as you said, it well laid out, beautiful. The photography is gorgeous. And like, there are a lot of books. I own hundreds of cookbooks, and a lot of them, I'm just clear, this is an art book. This is a book that's going to sit on the coffee table. It's gorgeous, but I'm never going to cook out of it.
Yeah.
These are recipes that I immediately, like, just flipping through, I just saw like dozens of recipes that I'm going to make soon. And so I love that it has a utility, and it just seems like it's somewhere where everybody can fit in. Like, you know, I'm just looking at the granola, the chia pudding, the spice carrot pumpkin muffins. There's just so much heat in here. The pan roasted sweet plantains. By the way, one of my favorite images in this book is the progression of the ripeness of the plantain on page 18.
The plantain chart.
That's what that needs to be a poster.
There's like 6 plantain recipes in the book.
I love it, man. Well, listen, G, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh,
thank you so much. A couple people asked what the name of the book is, so I'm going to flash again. This is Global Recipes for Modern Health, Everyone's Table, by Gregory Gourdet with JJ Good. I like to end the conversations with a kind of like quick fire challenge, if you will. So I'm just going to fire off some words, and then you just kind of like a word or a phrase or whatever comes to mind. Let me know what comes up for you. You ready for this?
Yes.
All right. Queens.
Queens? When I think of Queens, I think of like early childhood. I think of the Fat Boys because I used to live by them. And
that's wild.
Like Queens, Long Island. When I think of Queens and Long Island. I think of Fat Boys, and I think of De La Soul. And I think of being a kid in my Catholic school uniform, eating like a bologna sandwich, and coming home and there's like a pot of rice and beans on the table that my aunt made. Like that's what I think about.
All right, up next, pickles.
Pickles is a good one. I made pickles on Top Chef with my mom, and we won a challenge for it. So I think pickles is the most iconic Haitian condiment of all time. I think someone actually asked if my mom approved of my recipe, and she did. But the move with pickles is that my mom would always make it and keep it in the cupboard, and it was like always the move. Like you always have the pickles, you put it on the dinner table. Sometimes my relatives would come from Haiti with like a suitcase full of ingredients and products and like cassava crackers and like Haitian brittle. And they would often bring like either habanero, Scotch bonnet peppers, or jars of pickles. And now I make my own pickles and I serve at the restaurant. And when we make to-go kits, we always have pickles in them. So you got to spread the pickles gospel because people love it. It's a good thing. It's an easy entry into Haitian cuisine, 100%.
Word up. All right. Quick fire challenge.
Okay. Quick fire challenge is the word?
Yeah. 2 words.
So, I don't know. My first season of Top Chef, I was really good at quick fires. My second season of Top Chef, getting a little bit older, I was okay at quick fires. So I still enjoy, being kept on my toes. I still being in high pressure situations. But yeah, I mean, I think having a bunch of quick fires under my belt, I can easily make something in just a couple minutes with just a few things in the pantry. So I think it's a helpful skill to have. It makes you not get stressed out over time because you can accomplish more in a specific time frame.
Cool. All right, 2 more. Kwame.
Kwame Iwachi is like the best. I mean, like he's like the best. I mean, he's like such a good friend. He's a good brother. I think for him, I think he's definitely one to watch continually. I think he's quietly working on a lot of really major things right now. But yeah, I think he's definitely a leading chef in America, and I'm very curious to see where his career takes him because I know he's interested in a lot more things than just cooking. I don't have any spoilers about what he's been up to, but I know that, he's going to do something.
He's about to pop off. Maybe.
Yeah. I can tell.
Well, a little side note. Do y'all have like someone doing the styling for you guys in the latest season? Because y'all be like fresh to death up here.
I do everything by myself.
Oh, okay.
He has a
stylish cat, so I get it.
He's dialed in. But the funny thing is we matched like we never talked about what we were gonna wear, but like there's a point in the season where we just start matching every single challenge. And like that's true synergy.
Mastermind, I get it. Totally. All right, this is an easy one. Houseplants. Houseplants
are important. I live by myself. I think just plant therapy is an important thing, and it's something that's very calming for me. It takes me about an hour and a half to an hour to really care for my houseplants. And I live in an apartment, right by downtown, so it's like my oasis. The funny thing is I've kind of had to taught myself how to take care of these plants, but my mother is a master gardener, and my aunt is she runs a plant store out of her house in Haiti, so it 100% runs in my family.
Word. Gregory, much respect to you.
Right.
We wish you nothing but success.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Everyone, please get this book. Please visit an independent bookstore if you can. Booksense.org, indiebooks.org to find out the best indie bookseller near you. Support indie booksellers. We got to do it. I want to thank Kaiser for underwriting this program and supporting us all these years. And have a good weekend, everybody. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
Peace.